This week's episode of Performance Anxiety features London Brown. You may recognize him as Fat Reggie from HBO's Ballers, but he also does a lot more. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's also a really good photographer. He gives us some great behind-the-scenes stories, and actually even gives us a little Denzel Washington impersonation. So sit back and listen to one of the most positive people I've seen on the internet. Hope you enjoy this week's episode of Performance Anxiety with London Brown.
Yo, this is London Brown, a.k.a. Fat Reggie from HBO Ballers, the character you love to hate but to love. Man, you guys be sure to tune in, man, and catch me on Performance Anxiety Fun Podcast. Go, man.
So you are an LA native.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, so there's like one of like 5 people. They're actually native from LA then.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people from LA.
Yeah.
I am one. A lot of people import in, absolutely.
So you're on the show Ballers. Are you a big sports fan?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I do another show, and it's more of a sports-based podcast. We talk about all kinds of stuff, and it's a couple buddies of mine out in LA. And occasionally we have somebody you know on there, Carl McDowell. He comes on a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just with Carl. We did a photo shoot Monday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, good too. Yeah. We did a photo shoot. I was doing a photo shoot for a magazine cover I'm doing. So he was good dude.
Yeah, Carl's awesome. I've known him for a few years now, and he's really good friends with the 2 co-hosts of my podcasts out in LA. So I asked him, I said, is there anything I need to ask you about? Any dirt I can throw at you? And he's like, he didn't get back to me at all. He just totally ignored me. So yeah, he's a good dude for you. But on the other show, we were actually recorded last night, and we brought up the possibility, and I wanted to ask you this, about a Chargers-Rams Super Bowl. What do you think? How do you think that would go over in LA? Because 2 guys, all right, his name's Tommy Caprio. He's a producer for Jim Jeffries. And the other guy is Eric Rosenbaum. His brother's Michael. He played Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Right.
All right, so those are my 2 co-hosts. They're telling me constantly that LA is not a big sports town. If it's not the Lakers, and even with the Lakers, they're just not that interested. And I don't know if it's because there's a lot of people from out of town, but how do you think an LA Super Bowl would go over there?
I think we're diehard Lakers, Dodgers, and Raiders fans, and then outside of that, then it starts to get watered down. Yeah. So we're not really interested in the Rams. We just don't care outside of the Lakers, Dodgers, and Raiders. Because I mean, it just also too, like with the Rams, it's been so, the sports, especially with football, has been so inconsistent. Between us having the Rams was here back in the day, then they left,
yeah,
and then Raiders here and they left. So we just decided we don't really put all our faith into with football. We stick with USC. USC is really for LA, and usually people who go for UCLA aren't from here, but they moved here.
Okay.
We support USC. So,
I didn't realize it. Okay, so I'm getting a little. See, I'm out on the East Coast, so I don't know too much inside baseball. No pun intended on
right.
For LA sports. So now, growing up there, you got into theater and dance and all. So how did you get into the theater? How old were you? Was it something that you've always wanted to do, or?
The acting came in just from doing plays. I remember just in church, and then in high school, I got into, initially, growing up, I was a musician. So I thought that, I tried to check into a class because I saw one of the electives was keyboard. And I thought keyboard meant piano.
Okay.
Keyboard for typing. That class was full. So I couldn't get into a keys class. They said, yo, we got this drama class. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And then I took the drama class, and that's really where I started to study the craft. And then during high school, I was touring doing theater. And then that's kind of like the beginning of how this thing called acting. I did a play in the 11th grade called Rebel Without a Cause. And when I did that, that's where I was like, oh, I want to do this thing called acting because the feedback of the audience was so instantaneous. I said, yo, I like this feeling. This is, I get fulfilled from feeling that.
Okay.
And that started that.
So when did comedy come in? Did it come in before acting? After you started?
I think that funny people are born because being funny, I think, is really just a matter of timing. And I feel like growing up, I've always was saying something witty that would just kind of work. But you don't consider yourself a comedian. But I was always encouraged in high school. But I do remember in high school, in the yearbooks, I would sign actor and comedian. And this is before I actually knew anything about being a comedian. But I did manifest it because I knew I wanted to do it. I just didn't know how. Oh. So what happened was I used to work for the Los Angeles Times newspaper. I used to sell the newspaper, being funny, and I would sell the newspaper in different voices. My manager said, yo, we're doing a job, Christmas talent show. I was like, all right. He said, you ought to do it. I did it, told a couple jokes, didn't really know what I was doing. And then fast forward years later, I was then a teacher. And while I was teaching, they had a fundraiser, a comedy show was a fundraiser for the kids.
Okay.
And one of the assistant principals, somebody signed me up to do the show. And I did the show, and I was like, oh, and I had another epiphany, like I did with acting when I was 16. This happened as an adult. I was like, oh, this thing called, I got the same titillation that I got from doing theater, I got from doing stand-up. It was, what I realized is that both of them were on stage. One was like performing with a cast of 12 versus me performing. It was the same live reaction. And I was like, oh, this was a natural fit. It was a very seamless transition from theater to stand-up.
So you like getting that instant reaction from the crowd? Yeah,
man, because at the end of the day, it's a conversation with the audience. And I realized that the energy that I was able to get from doing theater, I was able to get from doing stand-up, but every night it was under my control. So I didn't have to memorize anyone's lines, go to a dress rehearsal. It was just me every night in the clubs, a few times a night, and once I realized that kind of is what started driving me even more with stand-up because I could do it every night.
So was your first paying gig acting or stand-up?
My first paying gig was acting. I did because I was doing theater first. So I started doing professional theater work fairly early on, and I got a couple coins for that. And stand up, even I was before I really got paid was maybe 2 years in before I really got paid.
Oh wow!
I mean, I was making some money. But I remember I did a club off in the hood here called the Family Room, and basically what they would do is if you were funny, they would tip you. They would like throw money on stage.
Oh wow!
And I remember one night I was dead broke and I was hungry, and while I was just telling my jokes, and I made enough money to fill my tank and get something to eat, and I was doing that while I was staying with my friends. So I mean I shouldn't say that I don't count that because that does count. Right. I just wasn't making as much money until like 2 years in.
So was that before or after the gig on Judge Karen's court?
That was all around the same time. I made $75 doing that, and that helped pay some bills. So it was just kind of gig. I was just gigging it. Usually you make enough in the city. They make about $25 to $50. If you do a private gig for someone's job, you might get $100, $200 max.
Oh wow!
So it's just you got to really like doing it because there is no pay.
So that Judge Karen thing was that an actual case? Was that real?
The case it was a real case. But I think that what happened was people didn't quite believe it because people found it to be funny. But I knew going in that whether it was on stage or on a show like a judge show, that I still had an audience. So my approach wasn't to go on there and to, like how she set my other two friends up, she let them go and kind of tell jokes behind the like podium thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, I was going to make the whole show an audience was my approach. So that's why when I walked in there, I was ready. It was. You
were strutting, man. I saw you come down the aisle. You were just, you were ready.
I just knew that I had eyes, and so I didn't want to waste any opportunity of getting in front of anybody. I just want to perform and make sure it's effective. So,
well, I'll tell you what, man. It took some pretty good balls to go up and start talking to the judge, and then just start doing impressions while you're on the stand.
Yeah, I was like I said, I was just trying to work the room. It's the same way with the audition. I don't have time to wait because I didn't. At the time I was still in the after school program job, and I was trying to figure it out. But I was like, yo, man, I got to make something happen.
And then you started touring with Chris Tucker. Was that slight little after that period?
Chris Tucker happened. That was like a year and a half in, I think. Basically, I was at a comedy club, the Hollywood Improv, to support my friend. And the host said, yo, Chris was on stage working out because he's about to go on the road.
Okay.
So the host said, yo, have you seen? The host said to me, he says, yo, has Chris Tucker seen you? I was like, no, he hasn't seen me. He says, he ought to see you. I said, I don't want to bother him. He's working out. So the host says to Chris Tucker, he says, yo, who inspires you? Chris Tucker says, Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor. The host says, yo, you inspired London. You should watch London. So he grabs me and puts me onto the stage. And I do like whatever my type 5 minutes was at the time. After when the club was out, me, Chris, we talked, we exchanged numbers. And after that, he called me like a month later and said, yo, I got a date. You want to come out? I like, bet. And I go to Maryville, and I guess he had called around to see how my character was. My character is solid. And I toured with him for like 3 years.
Wow, 3 years. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we went to Canada, went to Europe, and that's how I won like international comedian because of him, because I was able to go outside of the States because of him. So I owe that to him.
So I hear horror stories a lot about being the opening guy on a comedy tour. How is it really that bad? And what was it like with Chris?
With Chris, I just learned. There's some things I learned on stage from him, but more so off stage. I tip better because of him, or I tip a lot more because of him. I've seen how he dealt with fans, because we've been out and people come up at the airport and they wanted him to sign stuff. And I would see him and he wouldn't sign everything. And at first I was like, yo, that's why he not signing. One time we were out in Florida somewhere, and a fan came to us at the hotel, wanted him to sign it, all these pictures blowing up. And he didn't sign it. He said, not right now. And then I looked at him, and then as the elevator doors were closing on us, the fan starts to go irate and started cursing and throwing all kind of slanders and everything.
Wow.
And Chris very calmly just looked at me and said, see, you got to know the difference. When you're doing this long enough, your real fans, they'll respect your space. If you say you can't do it, they'll simply say, "Give me the bottom," and they'll keep going. You say they would never act like that. So I learned little stuff like that. And what I thought about was, the biggest thing I learned was, when I was in a Chris Tucker position, I would be sure to look out and do the same. And so as soon as I got into a headline position, I brought one of my buddies along, and I couldn't wait to do that because I knew my Chris Tucker day was coming.
Yeah.
So first thing I wanted to do was definitely look out for one of my friends and allow him to eat, as we call it, and I eat as well, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, in some of the interactions that I've heard about, some of the interviews and all that I've seen and researching for this, you're really good with your fans, and you learned a lot because you seem to be a really grounded, good guy, and you seem to be very genuine, even when you're on stage. In some of the prep work that I've done in watching the interviews, and it's really nice to see that kind of interaction.
Yeah, you know what? It's just a couple things, man. My mother is really grounded. There's nothing, she's just very a solid person. So coming from a household full of people who are very grounded, I think helps because we're just not into trying to be something else. First of all, it takes too much energy to be something else. So that's one thing. The next thing is there's never a need for me to put myself above anybody. So this is how I function, which is I'd rather keep myself humble rather than let circumstances cause me to be humble. Or if you're spiritual, I don't want God to humble me because that kind of humbling is, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just I let myself do it. If we keep our feet on the ground, if or when we fall, it won't be that far. So I don't want to ever be, anything self-aggrandizing because I'm not into that. Actually, and on a very simpler level, I just find it very corny. A lot of, it's a very insecure move to try to belittle people, put people down. I understand that the people don't even have to talk to me. So for people to take time to even say, yo, London, we like you on the show, or we thought you was funny on stage, whatever. The very least I can do is be kind to people.
Well, you even do that in your stand-up because your stand-up isn't about putting people down.
Exactly. People don't come to the show for that. I don't know. There have been people who come to the show who said to me, man, I wasn't having the best day. I really didn't feel like going on. People break up. I don't know what people's circumstances are when it comes to the show.
Right.
What if people come to the show for some sort of redemption, and when I'm on stage, I have control of the room, and for me to abuse my power in that way and to start tearing people down, who knows if I was the last source of positive energy that they could have used to turn things around. To whom much is given, much is required. So I try not to do that. Now, of course, even if we joke back and forth with the audience, I always, at the end of the joke, flip the joke around so that I'm the victim of the thing. I don't want the whole room coming down.
Right.
The world, like as we spoke about going into this, you said it's already enough podcasts, different things talking about a bunch of dark things.
Yeah.
That's not even in my nature. So I don't want to be that way.
Well,
so.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to do a show like that. And I appreciate your humbleness coming on to my show because now instead of doing a big morning show that I've been watching today, I've watched. You have no idea how many interviews I've watched with you over the past few days. And now you're doing a podcast with some middle-aged guy in his dining room. So that's pretty cool to me.
It's all good, man. I mean, people are people. I don't, at the end of the day, the president to the homeless person, people are people. We that's enough for respect,
So I want to find out how you got your. I don't know. Do you consider Hustle your breakthrough in acting or in TV? I guess maybe.
I consider it a step because I still haven't felt like I've gotten the breakthrough. But
okay.
I do feel like these have been great steps to the next level. The Hustle was very important means something because that casting director, Prentice Penny, he purposely decided to go with actors that no one had seen before. And in Hollywood, that's very difficult. People like what they like. And so nobody wants to take a chance on new faces.
Right, yeah. They want a name to draw people in.
That's the thing. So for him to say, yo, I'm going to go with some names. I'm going to go with some actors because they can act and not because of their resume was my loyalty. I have a lot of loyalty to him. And that was major because of that show. it allowed me to get these other looks. And for all of those, the important thing about that show is that show is so important for me as an actor because it was a prerequisite for Ballers that I didn't know necessarily was on its way. So I'm coming from theater. So coming from theater, we play, we're really over the top.
Yeah.
So what The Hustle did was it allowed me to put my acting into playing here. And so it was a crash course into this thing called television acting or screen acting. And we did one season of that. And as a lead on that, it allowed me to feel the weight of carrying the show. And that sort of thing. So then by the time Ballers comes around, a couple years later, I had already gotten the training within that first show. So when Ballers came around, it was in my proclivity to just I was comfortable.
Was that a difficult transition going from theater to screen acting?
No, not really. It's just a matter of adjusting.
Because in theater you gotta play it big, but when you got a camera in front of you, you can be a lot more subtle and it can,
right.
The audience can see what you're doing.
That's the thing. I think that it's just an adjustment. It's like, for example, going from driving a van like a rental truck to your vehicle. Like a rental truck, you just gotta be a little more careful. You gotta actually use the mirrors. In your car, you just do it and you whip faster. So it was just a matter of adjusting. But The Hustle allowed me to work out all those wrinkles. So by the time Ballers came around, I was like, okay, this is at least familiar, and we can go from there.
Did you do your own rapping on The Hustle, or was that? Yeah,
man, that was a whole other thing. That's what I'm saying. The Hustle was so many experiences because what my goal was as an actor, I put out or I manifested. I said, yo, an ideal career would be if I was acting during the day and working clubs at night, which sounded like a good idea until I actually had to do it. And I realized that I would get off set. With The Hustle, we would act all day, go to the studio, record, and then I would have to work clubs late night. After working clubs late night, I would have to go back home, learn more lines and more lyrics for the next day. And I had to be careful. That's when I started to believe the things that I was really manifesting because it started to happen. And so that's why now I don't like wasting words. And this goes back into my followers on social media know that I don't really care for small talk. And sometimes people just want to just talk. But I really feel like words are important. Now you would say
no. I don't know if you heard that my daughter just started screaming at my son in the middle of this interview, so that was great.
No, that's good. But no. So for me, I just make sure that I try to use words effectively because I believe in them, and I know from my own experiences that the things I say happen. So that's why even with the way I think and how I try to project to my friends is to focus on whatever it is we want. We have to focus on that because the mind must bring forth that which occupies it. If we think about being broke, we're going to be broke because your mind is focused on being broke rather than the solution to being broke. And so that's why I've done that with my life. So not only with the acting side of things or the way I use words and memorizing and stuff like that, but, when I would date, and being on the, coming up, if I didn't care if the girl liked me or not, if I wanted her, then I focused on that. Well, I just work on that.
There's a time in my life I would have been like, oh, okay, that sounds great. But, honestly, in the past couple of years, I got to agree with you because I try to change my mindset because I tend to be more of a, I guess, I don't say negative, but it's always, it's hard to see some of the positives sometimes. And,
absolutely.
And in actually with the support of my wife, doing these few podcasts that I've been able to do and getting some really cool guests. I mean, guys, and there's you and meeting Carl McDowell, a bunch of other friends. I talked to a lot of musicians that I've admired for years, and I never thought I would have done that without believing that I can do it.
Absolutely, dude. It's the real deal, man. That's why I'm like, in my mind, that's the confidence that I walk around with, and the security that I walk around with. This goes back to what we talked about before. This is why I don't ever have to tear or put anybody down, because the analogy I like to use is like this. If you and I were both going to go to, what's your favorite team?
Alabama Crimson Tide.
Alabama Crimson Tide. If we were going to go to one of their games, right?
Yep.
And I said, I got us tickets. And I said, yo, we're going to get dropped off over there. So don't worry about a ride. I'll meet you at your place. We're going to get dropped off. And if your limo came to pick you up first, I wouldn't be offended that that the limo came to get you. I would glad if it came. I would say, yo, you go ahead and take it up to the game. I'll be there in a minute. The reason I can say you go take this vehicle, I'll see you there, is because I know there's another limo on the way. And I see my career and my success in the same way, where I'm never threatened by anybody else doing well, because I feel like I'm going to do well. I may not get there when you get there, but I'm fine. I'll meet you there. If you stay focused and you're heading to the top, I'll meet you at the top, because I'm going to stay focused and get to the top. So I'm like, yo, let's enjoy yourself. In fact, go grab some seats, grab me some popcorn too. I'll be there on the way. And that's my relationship with people and success. So, it all ties together. But I understand that idea of like, sometimes it can be really hard to see the breakthrough. But that's what makes it so special for the people who have faith, because everyone doesn't have enough drive to see past the hardship to say that, yo, I know it's a lot of negativity. I know it's rough right now. I know I'm not getting paid enough. It takes a great deal of passion to be able to see through the rough times and be like, man, I know. When I looked at my bank account one year, when I was working in an after-school program, and I saw all I had in there was $28.
I've been there.
And I remember just some days where I was so hungry, I would post on Facebook. I'm like, yo, who got something to eat?
Oh, wow.
They hit me. They say, yo, where you at? Pull up. All right. Or I would date a girl and she would cook something for me. Or that was just, I remember, like, in fact, what happened was, you'd be the first one to get this story.
All right.
I remember my mom had moved. I was with my mom at the time, and she had moved. And I was in her old apartment. And I remember being in her old apartment because my pride wouldn't let me move with her as she moved to her new place. And so I stayed in her old place. And I remember I was in there with no lights, no hot water, no electricity. And I was just in there because I was just like, I didn't want to be in my mother's house at the time. So I was in there and just cold showers and a lamp and a laptop. And that's what I was doing. And I was still working and hustling and whatever that was. But so that's why now people, they don't. My Angela has this quote about, people see the glory, but they don't know the story. And I know people don't know me. So,
yeah.
But all those things, what I think about when people come up to me on the street, I think about that. So it keeps me very, very grounded. And I don't never lose in touch with those things because I know what that feels like.
Yeah. So, they see the what seems to be the really quick rise into shows like Ballers and headlining comedy tours and things like that, but they don't see everything that went on behind it. And your faith and your faith in God or whatever you believe in and your faith in yourself makes it a lot easier to be patient.
All of that. But there are exercises I do to make sure I work on patience. There are a lot of things. For example, I mean, this is just for free. One of the things I realized reading is that if we do things on our opposite, it helps create patience. Like, for example, if you comb your hair with your right hand, start doing it with your left hand. Neurologically, this does something to the brain and it creates a patience. So another thing I do is, like, for example, I drive with my left foot.
Oh my gosh.
And I learned to do that because I realized that it helps create patience. So I'm a very, very patient. I try to be very, very patient because there are a lot of things that can get us frustrated.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it. I have 3 kids. I live trying to be patient. I got 2 in high school and 1 in middle school. My life is all about making sure I'm patient, and it doesn't always work, but they're a good way to learn patience. That's for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
All right. Now you went from the hustle to Ballers. Was there anything in between?
No. Well,
acting wise.
No, it was. Yeah, I was doing the hustle. I was just touring. That was what's going on. I was doing the hustle, touring with Chris Tucker, and then after that, Ballers came. So at the time, I couldn't contractually. I couldn't do anything else because the show, managerially, the network, Fuse Network, was going through changes, and we was the first scripted show, so they weren't sure if they wanted to fully invest with us. So I was on a contract where basically a hold, and what they did was they would just like pay us to not land any other shows.
Oh wow!
And so I kind of lived off of that for a little minute while I was touring, and it was kind of like that. So.
And at that point, you got rid of your representation, didn't you?
Oh, dude!
What was going on there?
Let me tell you this story. So basically, it was already kind of interesting working with my head agent person. He was an interesting guy. What it came down to is one day there was like some big like Budweiser, some kind of beer audition they wanted me to do, some international. I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And it was like, yo, it kept like a lot of pressure, like, yo, man, you got to do it. Come on, man, you gotta do it. I was like, no, I really want to do it. Got some personal reasons I want to do it.
Right.
And the conversation ended with, you know what, London? Like, yo, man, you should be lucky we even want to represent you, man.
Oh, wow.
He said, no, man. When he said that, I was like, I just took a minute. I was at my after school program job at the time. So I was like, yo, I said that didn't feel good. And I was like, all right, but my feelings weren't even hurt. Excuse me. It was more like the only thing I thought about. I said, oh, he don't get it. He don't know who he's dealing with, and not to be, pounding my chest, but I meant he didn't see down the line. Right. I was like, okay, you don't understand. And within the next hour or two, I wrote this letter, and I was like, yo, yes, thank you for your services. They're no longer needed. Boom, got out of that, and
short and sweet,
one-liner, done. And what happened was, he didn't understand. I grew up in a house where my stepfather was an alcoholic. So I know firsthand how alcohol can rip a family in half and disrupt it. I dealt with that growing up. So, I may drink as far as in a show, on TV or whatever, the character may have a beer or whatever he drinks. But I wasn't going to be a spokesperson and a face for alcohol because also I was still teaching at the time. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So
that makes sense.
What it taught me was like, yo, I've never just been somebody just to fold because money don't move me. If I was one of those guys where money meant that kind of thing to me, then I would be sucked into all kind of stuff. But money does. I've been broke before. Yeah. Money don't move me, man. I'm not into that. Money's a byproduct. So, we need it, of course, obviously, to survive and pay bills, but I don't need no money. That's not the thing that you dangle in front of me to move. But what's interesting about that is that that's what makes moving forward so incredible is that I know that 2 years later on a Sunday night when HBO Balls premiered and he's my old agent was in bed with his wife or whomever and he's poking through the channels and he sees Ballers come up and I know he was he's laying in bed. He's like, get off me, get off. And he's looking, and he's doing like this, and he's wiping his eyes. It's like, is that the dude? Absolutely, I'm the same dude. And I know that whole agency's probably kicking themselves because they didn't get it, man. They didn't see. I'm like, and that's the thing, and that's why I have to try to surround myself with people who can see. At the very least, they got to be able to see what I see, if not see more than what I see. Because that's what makes my loyalty to the guy who booked me for The Hustle. And Chris, whomever, who's worked with me during these stages of my career, because this means that they were able to see the dismal light. And they say, I don't know what's going on, but something's there. Yeah. I'm very loyal to my theater director. And, people who my friends from high school say, yo, man, you good, man, just keep going. That's important.
So then you didn't have any representation when you started the audition process for Ballers?
No, that's the thing. I had no representation.
So how did that happen? How did they find you?
Dude, there was this veteran comedian, a writer, and the casting people got in touch with him. They asked him if he knew me. And he reached out to me and said, have you auditioned for Ballers? I said, no, not yet. Or I hadn't heard about it because I didn't have any representation. He said, yo, they're looking for you. Can I give me information? He says, bet. He sends my information over to them. And I went in to audition for 2014 in August. And at the time, I was working as a choreographer. And my voice was kind of like what it is now because I had been working so much. My voice was totally gone in the audition. So much so that I told him, I said, yo, if you don't understand me, call me back. And I'll do it. Just, I can do this.
Right.
And I did the audition. The first good song was basically in the audition, they said, yo, London, you're playing really, really serious. We want you to lighten it up and play them a little sinister and like this. I made the adjustment. And that was the thing that they were impressed by the most. They said, wow, you can adjust rather quickly. The next day, I had an audition for the producers. And once I knew I had the call back for the producers, I knew that I was in a good position because usually it's several callbacks before you even get to the round table.
Oh, okay.
So once I got in front of the producer director, that's how I feel with any audition. I'm like, just get me in the room. Just give me a shot. I'm ready. I'm like a player off the bench. I'm like, just give me the ball. I'm ready. I've been trained for this. So when I got to the room, it was like seven callbacks. And funny thing was, 2 months later, they ended up calling me, had me move to Miami. But when I found out later, 2 seasons in, I said, what took y'all so long? Why did the process take so long? He said, well, what was going on was that the network wanted an actor with a name. But the people in the room, they saw me firsthand. They wanted me because they saw me. And so the people in the room fought for me against the network.
Wow.
And then eventually, the network, they brought in, fine. But again, there were just some people fighting for me. Just like, the other people along the way who've been fighting for me. So.
Well, that seems to be a theme for you then. Studios don't wanting a name, but the people who actually interact with you want you instead.
That's the thing is that this is why I'm on tour. Because my friends, the people around me they saw it from the jump. They've always believed. And that's the thing that's what TV does. TV exposes you and introduces you into the living rooms of people. Yeah. And that's why the plan is to do TV, which I'm doing, book a film. I've done some films, but to book like a major film, to take the audience from TV, take them to the big screen, and bring them right back to the comedy club. That's the plan, very clear and laid out, very methodical. But I know that just like you, it's just like now we have a talk, you deal with me one-on-one, you say, oh, this is who he is. Yeah. And this is why these interviews with you or the ones I do to Essence or whomever, it's just introducing people to me because I know people don't know me.
Right.
That's why if there's ever any negative thoughts or ideas about me, I know that those people usually don't know me. Because you can't say that I'm like this and have a conversation with me. So I'm never bothered when people say I'm like this or London, you're so this or that. I'm like, you've never been with me when I've been in the middle of a date. I pull over and I go feed homeless people. Yeah. I know you ain't been. I know you haven't done that. Where I get up, I say whatever's going on. Listen, we got these leftovers. Bag this up. I'm about to recook this food, and you got any blankets? Bring them over. And I call my friends. Let's go. Follow me. Why don't you drive and go feed the homeless? And you go with me. Let's do it like this. I know you ain't. I know people ain't going with me to do that.
Right.
I know that people don't know that when I get stuff, I call my friends over. Here's a bag of clothes. That's just for you. Or I call my friends. Do you need anything? Your rent cool? You know. And there's been times where people I work with professionally, and I say, yo, what's going on? Your spirit, your energy is off. Yo, man, on the surface, they look fine.
Right.
Talk. Yo, man, my rent is kind of, dude, you my friend. Here you go. Now, of course, I'm not just throwing out money. And
right.
Kind of stuff, but it takes being very sensitive to know who and where and how to gauge that.
Yeah, because some people won't take that the right way.
Some people, will take it the right way, or some people, will come after the hands up.
Well, yeah,
so
that's true.
Matter. You got to know, man. But my point is that I know that a lot of people haven't dealt with me on a one-on-one. So that's why these interviews, like with yourself, are very important, so people can hear me firsthand and understand what's going on with me.
Well, with such a positive outlook and such goodness coming out, is it difficult to play, or was it difficult to play Reggie, because he started off not appearing to be the best, right. I guess the most honorable character on the show, and he had his boy's best interest in hand, Vernon, but he was a very disliked character to start with,
right?
And I didn't like Reggie at all. By season
right.
By season 4, I loved Reggie.
Right.
So
I think that what's happening is that with Reggie, that's part of the reason why I took the gig, because I like the idea that someone total opposite of me. That's not my style at all, but that's what makes it fun. Is because I get to be a part of me that if I wasn't collected, I probably would be that guy. I would just tell people what it is I feel, not the vindictive, facetious side, but just some of the really just tell people. The reason I don't tell people, this is a sidebar, but I have friends who feel like, London, you just need to be more direct. Don't hold your tongue. Just tell people what you feel. It's not that I'm afraid to tell people what I feel. I just know that they can't handle it. So for the sake of their feelings, I deal with people with a lot of gentility, to a degree. And because when I want to be direct, I give it direct. But that's some of those things I'm saying is a part of me that I'm able to incorporate into Reggie. But a lot of the other ideas, I've seen those guys. There's a Reggie and there's always a Reggie in an entourage.
Yeah.
And I've been around a lot of different cliques just because of the industry that I'm in. And I've seen that guy before. So it was just a matter of taking all those people who are very insecure and forming them into Reggie. I've dealt with a lot of insecure people. So,
that, yeah. Now, did you have any input in the character development of Reggie throughout the seasons?
Yeah, they were really cool because Reggie was only supposed to be in there a couple episodes, But after the audition process, they decided to make him a lead. So, but Reggie was still new to the point where they were writing Reggie parts while we was on set.
Oh wow!
We was creating and developing, and there was a lot of my improvisation they keep. It makes the cut, and I think that's coming from good directors who are able to trust my choices. But my good choices, if you will, comes from my training from theater. This is how it all ties in together. Theater is what allows me to be very impromptu. Also, me working clubs every night develops my timing.
Yeah.
So when me and Rob Corddry were throwing jokes and stuff off each other, those things are just timing, knowing that because we rotate, meaning I'll be the straight guy and he get all the jokes, or sometimes he's upset with me and I'm the one being slick with the word, and I'm calling Spencer names, and we developed Reggie into becoming the antagonist. I think it was. Reggie wasn't supposed to be the antagonist, but as we were going through the first 2 episodes, it was like, oh, yeah, he can't be. Okay, we're gonna just hype this up. And what happened was all of my scenes in season 1, were going at it with Dwayne, which was a great look for me as a new face.
Yeah.
To the network, it was a good light to be. I mean, if you can't be the hero, the antagonist is the next best seat.
Oh yeah, yeah. And in the most recent season, your interplay with Rob Corddry was just fantastic.
You know what, man? I just met with my team Monday. We had just end of the year, just meeting with my manager and everybody, and that's been the consensus, not only from you as interviewers, but them on their industry side, but they just my regular partners from the neighborhood. People like the chemistry that Reggie and Joe Coutel have on the show.
Yeah.
And it's cool that people could appreciate that, because we didn't really plan for that. But I think that this last season, more than the other season, people really like the chemistry. And I still gotta watch the season. So
that I don't know. That's kind of struck me as funny, but not.
Yeah, I gotta get around to it.
Yeah, you know what? You're just too busy filming it to watch it. Now you do impressions, and one of the ones you do is Denzel, and his son John David is on the show. Do you ever do a Denzel impression for John David?
Yeah, his son's come out to a couple of comedy clubs of mine out here in LA, and he's cool. I mean, he likes my impersonation of The Rock better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the one he says he like. I mean, the one I do with Dad's cool, but he probably hears that all the time.
Yeah,
but he likes the one I do with Dwayne, so he's real cool about it. So that works for me.
How do you decide how to do who you want to do an impression of? Is it?
Well, you know what? Sorry, that's my sister calling.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
I never really sat down to study a voice necessarily. I didn't know impersonations meant anything because the people in my house do them. So I didn't see them as anything special until I got into stand-up. People were like, "Oh, you do voices?" I didn't know. So for me, it was one of those things. I just felt like this is how I started in high school. I remember there were a lot of gang members at my high school.
Okay.
And when I would tell stories about whatever the movie was, I would just tell a story. But maybe this was in my nature because of my theater side. I would just reenact the scenes, but I wouldn't focus on the voice. I would just describing the story for whatever it was. Let's just say, if it was, training day, because everyone else training. Right. The trainer, like, "Yo, man, did you see Denzel, man, when he was at the lunch counter in the beginning? Boy, boom. You have the money, you do not have the money. If you don't have the money, put the money in the bag. Like, for all my friends, we got it. And boom." Man, whatever the thing was.
Right.
But the voice came out of doing that. And so when I would tell stories, the voice would happen. So what happened was, when I first started stand up, I didn't know how to write. I knew what the premise was. I didn't know anything about jokes. But what I did know is that I could do voices. So what I did was I decided to just move in my strength to get my footing in comedy. Okay. And then afterwards, I realized how to write and construct jokes. Then it changed, but so that's how it came about, and that's how I go about. Every now and again, if there's a particular artist I like, then I just kind of listen, because doing voices is just like singing. Like either a voice is in your register or it's not.
Okay.
So I'm kind of listening when I walk into a room, and every now and then, if I walk into a room, someone has a unique voice, then I'll mimic it right then and there, just so it's logged in my brain. Okay. I go into an audition, and the person says, "Okay, so who's next? Well, I know you're next. I think you're on ball. You did an incredible job on the show." I'm like, okay, he has a list. He talks slow. He's like this. So under my breath, I just make a quick mental note, and then at some point, at somewhere, I have it in my bank to draw from.
You mentioned earlier helping out the homeless with food and blankets, but you're also a photographer, and you've been taking portraits and pictures and documenting your work with the homeless. How did you get into photography?
I've always liked photography. I just couldn't afford a camera for a very long time.
Yeah.
And when I started touring with Chris, saved up enough money, bought me a camera, and I wanted to photograph people, but my confidence in photography wasn't there because I didn't know how to really use the camera, but I knew I could do it. Somewhere, I don't even know. I just knew I could.
Yeah.
Before I could. So what I started to do was, I worked in that school program, and we would serve the kids snacks, but the kids would waste the food. And what I started to do was to collect the food, and I would take it at midnight after working clubs, and I go feed the homeless. So when I would go feed the homeless, I would have conversations with the homeless. Then I realized that, while I was out, I would just shoot the nightlife. While I was out there, they were separate at first. And then somewhere in there, as I started getting up and personal, close and personal with the homeless people, one day I was just like, I started shooting it from afar. And then people started to like the pictures. And then between that, I started getting up close to them. And then I said, yo, man, I'd just like to photograph you if you don't mind. And because I would feed them and they would get comfortable.
Yeah.
So then I started to photograph them that way. And then that's kind of where it started from. And then after that, I built my confidence up with homeless people. And then I started shooting my friends who needed headshots. Then started shooting celebrities or whatever. And then I started doing my own landscape photography.
I see. This is my wheelhouse because I went to college for photography. So I love talking photography. I could talk your ear off for hours on it.
So, well, now that you told me, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you because I'm going to have questions on how to do whatever it is.
Yeah, man. You got my number. So anytime you got a question, I'll be thrilled to help you out. And you seem to be the type of guy who does a lot of research on what you're going to do. And
I try to.
I will, man. I'll give you a list of people to check out because if you haven't studied some of the amazing artists out there, there are so many people that you're going to want to see, and you're going to look at their photographs and say, "I can do this. This is fantastic." But I know I can do stuff like this, and that's what inspired me to go to college for it. I would see people like Dorothea Lange's photos, Cindy Sherman, Diane Arbus, Richard Avedon. You like landscapes, so you've got guys like way back in the late 19th century, Eugene Auger, Galen Roll.
You got to email these names for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely excited.
Oh man, I will give you pages upon pages of people to look for. Yeah. Some of the professors that I worked with in school, their stuff is fantastic. Guys like Willie Osterman. One of my professors was actually Ansel Adams' last assistant before he died. So
That's deep.
Yeah, so you got to.
Yeah. That's deep, man.
All right, so we'll hook up after this show, and I'll send you some names and stuff. But no, so what kind of equipment do you use? You Canon guy, Sony, Nikon?
Canon. I got a 6D Canon, and I got a couple lenses that help. I'm gonna send you a couple looks, man, and maybe you can help me figure out which lens I need to use to accomplish some of these things, man. Because I see some pictures, and I just marvel. I'm like, man, how did they get this shot? You know, and I've done a couple illegal climbs and jumped, and I just gotta get the shot and get going. But I mean, I just have tons of questions, man.
Oh man,
about photography.
Yeah, and a bunch of my classmates from RIT still shooting to this day. I was professional for like 15 years. Then I had kids, gave it up, had to get some steady income because unfortunately I was in an area, I went to school in Rochester and then I ended up moving down to Alabama and I was in a real poor section and it was just really hard to make a living doing that. So, And, my wife and I started having kids and I'm like, I guess I should probably get some steady income because it wasn't exactly steady at that point. But yeah, I mean, I can talk to you for hours about photography. I don't think the listeners are going to want to hear it right now. But and I will tell you one thing, and this is something that I will not edit out of the podcast. Check out a couple of my other episodes. I've had a couple of photographers on. A friend of mine is a guy named Jim Cummins, and he's still a photographer, but he was a photographer a music photographer for decades and decades. He shot guys like Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. He was at Woodstock, shot Santana, Miles Davis.
Classic,
he's shot over 900 album covers.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the greats then.
Oh yeah, so you check out that episode because he talks all about it. And then there's another lady who's a photographer right now out in LA named Priscilla Scott. She does a lot of live music photography. She's really good too. So
I'm on it, man.
So, all right. Now, before we wrap up, I want to find out about the new project that I don't know. Is it out yet? Asia A. Is that out yet?
Asia A is still making its way around film festivals.
All right. Tell me, what is that about?
Asia A, basically, I played a paralyzed athlete. And I got a call from the director. And he said, yo, man, I got the story for you. Want me to check it out? I read it on a Sunday evening. I was like, yo, this is really heavy and it's deep and it's a lot different from the other characters I've done. So I was like, yo, I'm in. And that right there was a very emotional piece. Because it's basically an athlete coming to terms with the reality that he's going to have a new life because he's finding out this information. So he has to decide how he wants to tackle this new chapter of his life. And it was a good piece for me to really sink in and get down into my emotional side.
So it's more of a dramatic piece than comedic. I imagine it'd be hard to do a comedy about a paralyzed athlete.
Right. I mean, that's what makes it so cool because it was just very heavy, and I like a good drama.
So if you had your choice, would you be doing more comedic work, more dramatic work, or just stand up?
I like the idea of both. Like I think that's the cool thing about my career and how it is and how it's set up. It kind of allows me to do both.
Do you have a preference between them?
Well, stand up for sure. Stand up for sure is my voice or my go to, but I drama's right up under it, man, because I like the stretch and the growth that I get from a good drama, and a lot of comedy comes from pain anyway. Yeah, I can't even. They're almost inseparable for my style because they work together. They coincide each other. So.
All right. So before I let you go, what's the worst thing you've had happen either in an audition or on stage or on set? What is the most I don't want to say embarrassing because it doesn't have to be embarrassing. But what's the strangest thing you've had happen in your? I guess you could pick either doing acting or stand up, or you could give me one of each. It's up to you.
The strangest thing. Goodness, let me see. This is a pretty good one. I guess the strangest thing might have been, I don't know, maybe this one. I'll share this one, but it's kind of cool because it ends in a good way. But basically, I was in Miami, and I was coming out of a shoe place, and this guy walked in, and he wanted to fight me because he thought I was Reggie for real.
Oh, wow.
And I talked him out of that. Wound up taking pictures for his wife and everything. Another time was in the club. I said from often I was in the club and this guy was mean mugging me by the bar. And to the point where he walked up on me just like, yo, I was trying to figure out why I didn't like you. I thought you was a dude. He said, I thought you was a guy, who maybe stole my girl. But
oh, geez.
I realized you was a dude from the show. I was mad at you from the show, so.
So he was mad at you for either way. It didn't matter. He was just mad at you.
And he offered to buy me a drink. Those are some of the things. Sometimes I meet, women who watch the show, and it's just kind of funny. You know what happened? Old people, just the way people treat me, who knew me before, but who came back around after the show.
Yeah.
Because now I get a bunch of psychics, if you will. Now, so right now I get a bunch of people saying, you know what? Now, mind you, this is like 3 seasons in. You know what, London? I don't know what it is about you, but I think you're going to do well with the acting thing. I'm like, yeah, just seems plastered on the show 4 seasons in, so.
You might be right.
You might be right. So that kind of thing, man, where everybody just, they're cheering for you. But not everybody, but some people. So
was it easier for you when they moved the shooting from Miami to Los Angeles for Ballers?
For me, I was able to appreciate it because I can still have my regular life. So I just go to work, get on set. After set, I know all the clubs. I'm going right from set, driving to the club, have a day off. I get to cook, go see my family, all that stuff I can appreciate. But Miami was good too because I needed the solidarity. I like being alone. I don't mind being alone at all. Okay. So it was good for me to just kind of be somewhere foreign and just focus. So,
where can people find out more about what you're doing? Are you touring with your comedy act yet recently? Or?
Yes, I'm touring, and it's going to be more dates coming into the new year. But if people would like to find me, I'm at Real London Brown, and all the good stuff. You can catch me on Instagram, and you'll be able to see, talk to me, watch me live, and all that good old stuff. So they're really cool.
Thank you so much. It's really, this has been one of the most fun podcasts I've done. You're just a great guy to talk to, real positive, and it's really nice to talk to somebody who's got such a great outlook on life.
Hey, man, I'm very grateful, man. I didn't get here alone, so.